This project is compliments of a friend and student, Priscilla McCarthy. She always takes my basic instructions and goes another step further, which is what I really enjoy about being in a teaching and learning environment. You get to share ideas. So this project takes 1.5 by 3 half round wire, 75 mils long. That's 3 inches to you in North America or Britain. That's for the top, and then we have 10 or 11 pieces of 1 millimeter wire, 100 millimeters long, or 4 inches in the old money. And what we're going to do is make sure that all of these are the same length. Because if they're not, when you get finished with the hair comb, you'll be able to see the kind of a snaggletooth idea. And you can see that these aren't the same length. So what I'm going to do is bend them in the middle, and then I'm going to make sure that they are all the same length. So we start by making sure this is flat, because we're going to arrange it on a new charcoal block, and we're going to put our pieces against it to solder, and if it's not flat, then the pieces that we solder on will not be level. And because this is half round wire and we're using 1 millimeter wire to butt up against it, we're going to just take our flat hand file and just file the edge so that it has about a 1 millimeter flat. I don't know if you can see it or not, but we want this side to be flat enough that our wires, when we go to solder them on, will butt right up against it. All these pieces of wire are meant to be 100 mil long, so what I'm going to do is just mark each one with my Sharpie at 50 mil. And that means that the part that is extra long, I'll just snip off with my side cutters after I bend it. So mark all of them. So now they're all marked, and what we're going to do is use our flat round pliers with the smallest spot on the end. We want to use the natural curve of the wire, and we're just going to bend that up until these two ends touch, and we want that shape. Yeah. So do all of them, and the ones that are a lot longer, like that, we'll snip that off to the proper level. So there are 10 of these. So once you've snipped all these to the proper level, put them all together, have a look, make sure that they're all the same length. Now, at this point, you're going to file these ends flat. Just brace it against your bench peg. Don't be too rough or you'll bend the ends over. So we just want to file them flat. And now, once they're flat, what we're going to do is manipulate this so that the ends stay together. And we're going to put a tiny piece of solder on here. Now make sure that the curve is still in there, because we don't want the solder to run anywhere other than right on that point. Manipulate the ends so that they touch. Place them on your charcoal block. One spot of flux right at that spot, and then one piece of hard solder about 2 millimeters long. Place with your flux brush. And it's okay if these have a bit of a twist or they're not perfectly even, as long as we can solder the ends together. We can straighten them out after. The idea is just get the ends soldered together. So your same neutral flame we always use. If you're using a propane torch, I would suggest that you do these one at a time. So just gently heat it up. Make sure the solder stays at that spot. Done. So do all of them. What you can do is if they don't quite come together, you can use your tweezers, flow the solder, give it a tiny squeeze, and then it'll flow. So do all of these. Quench and pickle. Ideally, these will all look like this when we're finished. If they have a little bit of a twist in them, you can just grab the end with your parallel jaw pliers. You can slide that down in and just straighten it out. And it's just so they'll lie flat on our charcoal block. Once you get them all straight, check them again for length. If they're slightly off, file them to length using the shortest one as your pattern. And then what we'll do is hopefully you'll have a new charcoal block. The flat side will face these, and then we're going to arrange these against our half-round wire so that it looks just like that. Side by side. I know it's inaccurate. You could measure it all out, but I found when I tried that, I wasted a lot of time trying to get the spacing correct when you can just use the width of the piece, line them up by eye. Ideally, they will touch each other at the wide part of the wire. So we're just going to solder these where they're touching the top. So lay it all out with all of your pieces and you can see the spacing you need. Now you can see that this is going to be a bit of a nightmare to try to solder. So what we're going to do is use our flux to hold everything in place. So just a small dot of flux. Make sure that you've mixed it up, because if there's clear liquid on top, it's just water. So it has to be a slightly milky color to work. Each spot, just visually make sure that your distance between them is the same. If they don't touch, it's okay. Now what I'm doing is I'm putting a spot of flux on this end, and when I warm that up, it's going to hold each piece in place. It's kind of messy, and it'll leave white spots on your charcoal block, but I reckon it's worth it because it really works well to hold it all together. So at this point, push it all around, make sure it's where you want it. And we're just going to dry out the flux. So I'll start on this end. And we want the flux to kind of go a crusty white. So that means all of the water is evaporated out of it. Yep. Now when that cools off, this isn't going to go anywhere. And what I'll do is I'll warm the top now and push the half round wire down just a little to make sure that it's touching all of those pieces. Now we're ready to put our solder on. So I would let it cool off in its own time. Have a look at it. If there's some that are a little bit off, now's the time to warm it up, push it where it needs to go. And what we're going to do is we're going to use one piece of hard solder at each spot. Now we already have solder holding those together, so with another small piece of solder right on the spot, it should be plenty. Yeah, so I'm just going to cut my solder bits on the charcoal block. Good, huh? And place them one at a time. Right where the two come together. Now normally I would be soldering this from the back, but the half round wire is flat and it's quite difficult. So this is a hard charcoal block. They tend to last a lot longer. And so pick up your solder with your flux brush, place it, do each spot, and then we'll start making it a piece.